in one of the most destructive, the most dominant Cowboys road wins, not only of the season, but maybe in franchise history. The Dallas Cowboys take down the previously one-loss Minnesota Vikings 40-3 at US Bank Stadium up in Minneapolis. Welcome in to the First Word presented by Dr. Pepper, live from the Star in Frisco. And there is a lot to get to in a short amount of time. Welcoming in Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Youmans. This was dominant from the get-go. The Cowboys got off to a hot start on the first pass attempt from scrimmage. Micah Parsons with a sack set the tone, and they didn't really look back after that.
Without a doubt, they didn't look back. And to me, this was the first complete win for the Dallas Cowboys, because we always look back to their wins. Yeah, they won, but they gave up 200 yards on the ground. Yeah, they won, but this team was able to throw the football. Not the case this time. Offensively, they stuck with the game plan. They let the run game finish off this team. They threw the ball well out there. Special teams, Brent Maher, Money Maher out there did his thing, was killing the field goal percentage. And then defensively, the Vikings fell right into the Cowboys trap. They fell down 2 scores early on, and they let that defensive line do what they do best, and that's hunt the quarterback. Kirk Cousins had no chance back there. He looked confused. He looked scared out there the entire afternoon. Pass rush after pass rush after pass rush. The waves just kept coming for this Dallas Cowboys defense, and they were able to put away the Vikings even before halftime.
Disrespect. This game was just purely disrespectful. What Dallas did to the Minnesota Vikings and their 8-1 record, that was textbook. This is exactly how you draw it up. We've talked about it here on a pregame show before. We talked about it on a special edition. When Dallas is able to get up and early in the game, it creates a bad situation for teams simply because of this pass rush that Dan Quinn has been able to elicit. And what you're seeing here is Dallas getting their confidence back. You're seeing Kellen Moore finding a way to score some points. And as long as Dallas is always in a position to score points at will and score points early, teams, I don't care who you are, Nate, dog, teams are going to have problems with this team.
You start with Zeke, you start tenderizing, you start beating them up. You ended up with Tony Pollard. What impressed me, fellas, was the third downs, man. After the first half, these guys was 8 for 10. After the first half, 8 for 10 at halftime on third downs. They come into the third quarter, they was 10 for 12. That's with 8 minutes and 15 seconds left. At the end of the game, they was 12 for 17. Third downs, time of possession, 37 minutes, 24 seconds. That's what you need to win a game. That's why the defense could use their superpowers and get after the quarterback.
You mentioned the efficiency for the Cowboys offense on third down. Minnesota was just 1 of 11 on third downs in their regard as well. We're going to see the 40 burger up there first. 40 points on the board against the Minnesota defense that had playmakers at all 3 levels. Sure, they were missing some guys out of their secondary, most notably Cameron Dantzler, who's played well on the outside at the cornerback position. But Dallas did everything they wanted to offensively. Kellen Moore called a phenomenal game. You look at Dak Prescott, 22 of 25 passing for 276 yards and a couple touchdowns. They finished with 450 yards of total offense. Barry, what did you see that impressed you the most out of this Cowboys offense?
Well, to me, offensively, Dak Prescott out there, he seemed cool, calm, and collected. He had total control of this offense. It seemed like there wasn't a situation that he wasn't prepared for. Last week we saw he kind of forced some passes in there. He had the 2 early interceptions. This week, if the number 1 option wasn't there, number 2 option wasn't there, he's dumping it off to Tony Pollard. He's dumping it off to Schultz, keeping the chains moving. And that's what you love to see from your quarterback. The weapons on the outside, they all perform. Noah Brown, Gallup had some big catches out there, and Tony Pollard. 189 total yards on the offensive side of the football. This guy, he had a heck of a game, man.
I think collectively this offense was just very efficient. I think they stayed in really manageable down the distances. I don't think they were ever in a situation where they felt like they had to reach and try to do something down the field. That was something that was going to be very important for them in terms of establishing the running game. Obviously, Tony Pollard played a part. Ezekiel Elliott came in and did his thing. All right, not numbers-wise, but his presence was felt. And then you're able to start taking advantage of some of the matchups. The teams want to go man-to-man. Oh, we got a TP in the backfield that'll run a wheel route for a touchdown as well. And Dak Prescott, more important than anything, was very accurate tonight. That's what I wanted to see out of him. That's what he showed tonight.
I have to agree with you, man. Just repeat what you said, man. For the first time, we used Tony Pollard perfectly. Throwing it out of the backfield, they had nobody to cover him. Zeke, like I said, was tenderizing. And, CeeDee Lamb making catches that he needed to make. And Noah Brown. Hey, we finally found it. Dak, we finally found it.
Yeah, Noah Brown with a nice day. But Tony Pollard, 80 yards on the ground, 109 through the air. He had 109 yards receiving, so 189 total. The entire Minnesota offense, 183. Tony Pollard outgained the Minnesota Vikings by 6 yards on his own. So let's talk about the defense in that regard. 7 sacks, most they've had in a single game since 2008 when they had 8 sacks back over a decade and a half ago. What did you see from the defense that really caught your eye and did so from beginning to end?
Well, I'm glad, the coaches were looking at the pregame show because they listened to me and they left Micah Parsons on the edge. To me, that's when this defense just flourishes. When this guy is coming off of the edge, creating havoc back there, it's creating one-on-ones for the rest of the defensive line. We saw Sam Williams be able to get to the backfield. We saw DeMarcus Lawrence, Neville Gallimore. Those guys were playing outstanding. And what I love the most about this defense, they were hustling all over the place. If they passed the ball up, they were tracking it down from behind. You've seen defensive linemen running 15 yards down the field just to tackle somebody who has the ball offensively. So to me, this defense, they played an outstanding game. They were flying around the football. Kudos to Dan Quinn and that defense overall.
This was personal for the defense today. This is very personal. You heard the murmurs over the last few weeks in terms of them giving up over 200 yards on the ground, back-to-back games. They were tired of hearing that. They were tired of hearing that they're not enough, that they're not doing enough, that these guys aren't making enough plays. So what you see today, you saw the offense play some complimentary ball. They got up early and allowed the dogs to go out there and do exactly what they do, and that means go out there and eat. And they did that all day long against Kirk Cousins. They made life a living heck for him. And I can tell you that right now and then. All right, it was rough for him all day long, and they lived in the backfield.
Believe me, fellas. Believe me when I tell you this. When the offense do what you do, it allows the defense to do what they do. It just release their superpowers. We need for them to be that pass rush. We need to always have some type of lead or keep the game close. That allows you to let the Parsons lose. Curse got in on the sack party. It's back to the sack party, whether you want to believe it or not. 7 sacks? Come on, Kirk Cousins. You showed up, bro. The old Kirk Cousins.
Ooh,
yeah.
Nate Newton pulling out the shots here at the end. That's the biggest thing in this win is it shows from week to week just how things can change in the National Football League. You lose last week to Green Bay. Everything looks like it's on the downturn. Then all of a sudden, iron sharpens iron throughout the course of the week. And you iron some things out from a Cowboys standpoint. They get the win in a big-time way. The stats also tell the story. You look at it one side to the other, it was lopsided from the opening kickoff. All 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams, thoroughly outplay the Minnesota Vikings. 40-3, the final score here in week number 11 of the NFL season. We've got more post-game reaction coming from US Bank Stadium. Cowboys OT, Cowboys game night coming up in just a couple of minutes, but that does it for the first word. Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Youmans. Cowboys win it big time over Minnesota.